What do you do if you're the committee with Florida State now? Let's say they beat Florida and they beat Louisville, but I mean they were precarious in some circles, even with Jordan Travis. Now without Jordan Travis, are they a playoff team? How do you handle this whole thing if you're in that committee room and you're the committee member with Florida State now without QB1 with a resume that is not overwhelming?
You spend the next 2 weeks thoroughly examining Tate Rodemaker and whether or not you think he could be Cardale Jones of Ohio State in 2014. And I think that's very real. The rest of the team needs to be evaluated the way they've been evaluated each and every week, and obviously the committee has liked them. You take the most important player off the field, the player that I believe has been the most improved college football player, regardless of position over the last 5 years in college football, a true difference maker, a Heisman candidate, and you remove him from the equation. Does it have an impact? Absolutely. I think it would have a greater impact in a negative fashion if this would have happened next week or in the ACC championship game, where the committee doesn't have an opportunity to sit back and watch Florida State on the road next week against Florida and see what Tate Rodemaker does. Doesn't have the opportunity to see what they do in the ACC championship game. So hope is not all lost, in my opinion, for Florida State. It's taken a major dent, but the timing of this to give the committee a chance to look and say, could this team compete at the highest level and potentially win a semifinal game without Jordan Travis? Having these next two games is going to be critical to them making that decision as accurately and fairly as they can.
This will be shocking to some on Tuesday, but even if Jordan Travis was upright and healthy, Washington was going to jump Florida State this week anyway because they just beat another top 12 opponent on the road. So Washington's going to be 4 this week, and Florida State's going to drop. It will look to some like they're reacting to Jordan Travis already, but that's not the case, right?
I don't think that's the case at all. And not only did you see Washington go into a very, very difficult environment and win that game, you also saw them handle the weather conditions. I mean, I've never seen a quarterback like Michael Penix throw a wet football. I've never seen a quarterback throw a wet football like that. It was like it wasn't even raining. I thought what they did on Saturday was the most impressive of their last 3 to 4 outings, and it was a really important outing and window nationally for them to be seen. So I thought that part of it was going to catapult Washington above Florida State regardless. And so I think it would be unfair to say, oh, well, the committee's just reacting because Jordan Travis got hurt. I think they're far more reacting to the fact that Washington looked really good on Saturday night.
A team that Alabama fans are very familiar with here, and that's 2014 Ohio State, who eliminated Alabama in the first ever college football playoffs and went on to win the national championship, did that with their third-string quarterback. So with that as a little bit of a precedent back in the first year of the college football playoffs, does that help Florida State with the committee down the stretch here that Ohio State did this back in 2014? Or is the fact that there's so big of a logjam at the top make this a totally different scenario?
Well, the committee likes to say that every week is its own week and every year is its own week. But human nature will tell you, hey, we've had this before. How did it work out? My crew actually, ironically, had that Ohio State-Michigan game. I was on the field when that happened. And J.T. Barrett went down and Cardale Stewart came in, and somehow they looked really, really good. Yep. And it was against Michigan, of all people. And obviously the rest is history. That was a really, really dominant Ohio State football team that I think just needed sufficient effective quarterback play. They didn't need elite quarterback play, and they actually got more than they expected they probably would out of Cardale Jones. Does the committee feel like Tate Rodemaker will give Florida State more than is maybe actually needed? I don't think this Florida State team is the same team as that Ohio State team was on defense that year. That could play a role, but I think you have to go back and examine that, and you have to go back and look at some of the parameters that were in play. Are there any similarities? Are there any common denominators that would help us make a better decision this time around. They'll say that they won't do that, but I think you kind of have to do that to some degree. Listen, it's so different. Let's just say Texas losing Jonathan Brooks, right? I mean, we saw what Texas looked like for 2 weeks with Malik Murphy, and I do not think the committee, if the same thing happened to Texas, looking at Malik Murphy would have kept Texas in the fold. I don't know if that's going to be the same for Florida State, but again, they have 2 more weeks to examine this and really watch the quarterback play. If the quarterback play is effective and efficient, and they beat Florida in the swamp, and they beat a top 10 team in Louisville, and they're an undefeated football team that's a champion of a Power 5 conference, Jim, I think they're going in. I think it's a telltale sign. You've got a really good football team, you've got a resilient football team, and you got a quarterback that stepped in and is effective.